Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 630. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, the Duke of You-Know, the Sultan of Strategery, the indestructible bridge-defying, is really concerned that Sean wants to help him along with the Bridgeman origin story after reading Peacemaker. So says the elder statesman of the podcast, Segulin.
How's it going, eh?
Jim, on this episode, we're going to be talking about Peacemaker Disturbing the Peace and Deathstroke Inc. issue number 5. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Jim, what's going on over at DCBService.com?
Well, DCBS isn't just about really cool deals on comics. They've got all types of collectibles, statues, action figures, apparel, clothing, whatnot, you name it. And it's funny, it's not just in the comic book universe. It's all the geek stuff, but even I'm looking at Funko's figures that they've got out there, and they're running the sports line right now. So we've got the Funko vinyl gold of the NFL Browns quarterback Baker Mayfield. And I'm like, the last thing I'd ever expect to see is Baker Mayfield right there, but outstanding. So thank you, DCBS, for all that you're giving us.
Over at InStockTrades.com, they've got some really great deals of the week. Batman, Robin, and Howard trade paperback. It's $9.99 regularly, 52% off, only $4.79. I really enjoyed this. That's why I want to shout this one out. We've got The Crisis on Multiple Earths, Book 1, Crossing Over trade paperback. $39.99 regularly, 55% off, only $17.99. If you want to see the beginning multiverse stories, this is the place to catch it. Green Arrow, 80 Years of the Emerald Archer. $29.99 regularly, 60% off, only $11.99. I want to thank DCB Service at InStockTrades.com for continuing to support the show and providing such great deals. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics. Jim, a couple things happened this week, or at least news that I found out about this week. I don't know if it was actually delivered this week, but Suicide Squad versus the Justice League, that game that's coming up from Rocksteady, is being delayed to 2023. It's an interesting sort of thing because I know, like, you and I have probably a different level of interest in the immediacy of that being released. But for me, I'd rather have it delayed and done really well than pumped out quickly for the purpose of getting a game out there. Because here's the thing, whether you are a heavy gamer or not, or it's something that is even on your radar or important to you, any kind of media that points people to comics or the comic properties is a good thing. If it's bad, and it gets trashed, just like when films get trashed, right? We've seen that happen with the DC films. Look what's happened with that. It has a trickle-down effect of now every DC movie has that cloud hanging over it. Whether it's right or wrong, it's just a thing that we all expect, right? Okay, it's a DC movie, which means it's not going to get the same level of love that a Marvel movie is going to get, just because that stigma is now there. I'm really afraid for that with the games because we've got a Wonder Woman game finally on the radar. We've got a Gotham Knights game, that's on the radar. There's just a number of things that are going on right now, and I want these things to do well because anything that points people to these properties I just think is a good thing. So delays like that don't bother me. It's kind of like delays in comics. Like, I want the immediacy. I want them to come out on time, but I'd rather have them come out and be really good than be pumped out quickly. What's your take, though, when things are delayed, film, television, any media, when something was on your radar and it's going to come later, do you lose interest in it? Or is it something that you're patient for? Or you fall somewhere in the middle?
Well, it actually depends on what the property is. Like, I saw that announcement on the Justice League Suicide Squad, and it didn't even vaguely faze me. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, okay, get it right. And that was my mindset going forward. if it's a movie I'm looking forward to and I hear it, I'm like, I dive into it saying, okay, why did it get delayed? Did it get delayed because of COVID? Did it get delayed because of refilming stuff? What's happening here? And that's where it has potential actually to intrigue me even more. Like, you think about Wonder Woman 1984 got delayed solely because of COVID. Well, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm glad you guys delayed it. Let's get it so we can maybe enjoy it in a theater. With Justice League, when they started redoing all the reshoots and stuff like that, that had me. I didn't know if it was partially worried. Is part of me like, what's going to be different? How are they changing it? And so it's one of those things where it can actually work in their favor on my end if it could make me more interested in it. It's very rarely does it make me not more interested in it if I'm already going into it, curious. Like, as I said, with the game, it didn't affect me that much because the game seemed neat. I was waiting for you to play it and tell me how it is, and I'll see it. I'll do the YouTube stuff where I'll watch people play it and I'll see how interesting it is and all that stuff. So for me, I can delay on waiting on that, so it's not going to hurt me. Sometimes comic books do annoy me though, because when there's a delay in it, and I'm like, come on, I want to read it now, guys, and it doesn't take away from me saying I'm not going to read it, but there have been times when a book got delayed for whatever reason that it was really high on my list that it dropped down on the list. I still read it and I still enjoyed it, but if it had come out on a timely basis, I probably would have been more like, I would have been more excited about it, and I would have more talked about it more. I would have, probably read it a couple times even more, or, I would have been more motivated to get because I got the initial, when the collection comes out, even more motivated to get the collected edition of it, that kind of stuff. But it's, so it can affect, as I'm saying, it can affect me, delays, but as a general rule, I look at delays as possibly a good thing, but it does get me interested in why is the delay.
You mentioned comic books, and I say for me, when it's a mini-series and it's delayed partway through, it affects momentum. Because I know I'm going to have to go back and reread it in order to remember what was happening and things like that. Just because it's like a book, where you put a book down after you're 5 chapters in and then you don't come back to it for a year. Well, you've done other things, gone on to other things. So now you've got to refresh your memory on okay, what was going on and who's that character and those type of things, which is kind of a natural piece. So it does affect momentum. It's happened in quite a few miniseries for me. My preference on that is if there's any way they can see that, hey, this is going to be a problem before the miniseries is launched, delay it. And release the miniseries, as close as possible to monthly or bi-monthly, whatever the original intention was, so that way that momentum's not lost. I prefer miniseries monthly, so I say monthly or bi-monthly. I'm glad to jump on board a really good bi-monthly miniseries, but I'd rather, if the schedule for the creative team is such that you can't put it out monthly, delay that bad boy, release it monthly. Just because I think it's better for the miniseries, it's better for the overall fan enjoyment. I think it's better for the buzz around it because we're all talking about it then in real time instead of talking about the delays. Because then the conversation shifts, right? You're not talking about content, you're talking about delays. And it really does shift that way. And I think it's the same thing in this kind of environment. Hey, did you read the miniseries or the initial kickoff of Swamp Thing Green Hell?
No, I haven't yet. How is that?
So I read the first issue. It's really good.
Awesome.
It's Jeff Lemire, it's Doug Mahnke, and David Barron. And I wanted to shout this one out just because it was something that I kind of forgot about. And I picked up the issue and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so good. It's just really high quality. The idea behind it is, and this is a big, it's not like a single issue. It's 2 issues in one. It's one of those black label, premium prestige, format kind of deliveries where you're getting more pages in the issue. The idea is, though, it's a Swamp Thing story. It takes place in kind of this potential future where, humanity has just gotten it wrong. They're still alive and everything and still doing that, but they've gotten it wrong. And the green, which, typically is, all about saving, the forestry and the trees and, the whole just nature in general, this idea of humanity versus nature kind of thing. They're kind of looking at humanity as, okay, you kind of screwed everything up. Like any pest, the best way to handle that is just to kind of wipe you all out and kind of, we're going to be the dominant force around here and let life head in a new direction. Well, we get to see an older version of Constantine in this, and there is a new Swamp Thing that's introduced in this. There's some serious decisions that have to be made. Like, the new Swamp Thing's put together by the Green. Well, you know what the Green thinks.
Yeah.
So needless to say, we've got this terrifying new Swamp Thing that doesn't much like people because of the way the Green's kind of pushing things. So it's an interesting sort of story and very compelling. And there's some familiar faces that show up in it for various reasons. And I'm going to leave some of that nebulous right now because I think it's a series you should really read. But it's a different sort of take on Swamp Thing. It's kind of like, what if, as humanity, we talk about all the things we're doing in nature, all the things we're doing, and how we are getting it wrong. And that's a constant topic. Well, this takes a look at what if we continue doing that, and how's the Parliament going to react to it? The Parliament of Trees and the Green. Well, the Parliament has a very serious reaction to it in this story, and I didn't know what to expect. I just grabbed it based on creative team. The artwork is stunning. Jeff Lemire writing is, it's Jeff Lemire. So, it's just really, really good stuff. And colors by David Barron, who, longtime friend. It's a series that, again, it was under my radar. Can't recommend it more highly. Awesome,
man. Yeah, Swamp Thing's one of those books that any of the Swamp Thing stuff, I pick it up, but it always gets put. I don't want to say it doesn't put it on back burner, but I just don't have time to read it. And I'm always like going. But every time I pick up a Swamp Thing, every time I read it, I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And it's like one of those things where I'm like, I find time. I'm like, okay, I'm going to spend a couple hours just reading some books. I'll go to the Swamp Thing stuff that I have on iZilla that I haven't read yet. Like I just finished up that the 99-cent run that they did back in the heart of the COVID stuff. Mm-hmm. The digital releases only. I just finally finished up that run.
Yeah.
Just recently. Because that's how far back behind I am on some of the Swamp Thing stuff. So it's on my list, and maybe I'll bump it up to. I'll try to find some time to, get to it sooner than later.
Don't need to know anything walking into it, too. So for anybody out there, it's like, I haven't been a Swamp Thing reader. Do I need to know anything? Nope. Right out of the starting gate, it's a brand new story. Doesn't, certainly if you are a longtime Swamp Thing reader, it's more Swamp Thing, so that's great. But there's nothing to this story that requires like all this background knowledge. You're fed along the way what's going on. So it's really good on that end.
And here's the thing with Swamp Thing. And this is a general statement on Swamp Thing, is you don't usually need a lot of that background. Because, I'm not a heavy Swamp Thing guy. And every single Swamp Thing series we've picked up, I haven't been lost on it. I know exactly who the players are. I know what's going on. And I'm getting a really cool story. He's a really neat superhero in that you can pick and, pick him up in midway, mid-run and follow it easily. It's not like there's like this lengthy history of, you got to know who this person is. They basically make it it's clean follow and easy to follow. So I'm looking forward to what you said on that book, because again, I'm used to Swamp Thing being the hero. And if he's not the hero in the story, it can be interesting.
Let me put it this way. It gets complex. And it's one of those stories. And I say complex not in a off-putting way. Yeah. There's a lot of depth to the story.
Nice.
And the first issue kicking it off, I'm like, I can't wait for issue 2 of this. Yeah. Boy, again, another one, Black Label, boy, are they just nailing it. And I'm glad Black Label is not all not all Batman stories. Yes. I love the Batman stories, so that isn't a knock on Batman stories in Black Label. But I love that this is a Black Label Swamp Thing story. Same quality that we've come to expect from Black Label book, but now it's a Swamp Thing story. Did you read Dark Knights of Steel #4?
Not yet.
So for people out there that haven't jumped on this series yet, I'm going to encourage you, if you do jump on it, read the first 4 issues, because issue 4 is the one where they tell us the history of the Waynes and the Elves and how this whole world came to be. What the trajectory of it was. It was a really, really strong issue. And it fills in the blanks of everything that you need to know moving forward. I'm glad this is a 12-issue miniseries, because issue 4 is the one that, gives you rest of the backstory that you were looking for. And it needed to be issue 4, because you needed to kick the ground running with issues 1, 2, and 3 with everything that was delivered there. In issue 4, this is the issue that gives you the background that you're like, okay, this is how all this happened, and these are how these relationships are. This is why the world is the way that it is. And it's a cool issue for it. Tom Taylor is just continuing to deliver it, and I just wanted to shout it out as a mini-series again that I'm really, really enjoying right now. And we talked about up through issue 3 recently, and it's continuing to deliver. Peacemaker, have you had a chance to watch this?
No, I have not. I'm seeing a bunch of cool stuff on it. I'm like, I gotta watch this thing. I gotta find time.
I'm going to encourage people listening to this. So episode 6 just came out. And now there's 2 more episodes. So it's an 8-episode series, and I gotta be honest. I walked into this one because I enjoyed Suicide Squad so much. I was excited for it. When I heard Peacemaker was getting a spinoff, I don't want to say I wasn't excited for it. I was, because it was James Gunn and it was going to be a spinoff of the Suicide Squad movie. So they had me with that. I like John Cena's portrayal quite a bit as the character, so I was on board. The series itself and the cast and the relationships, which is what James Gunn is so good at, is why I'm going to tell you right now, 6 episodes in, I love this show. And I will say it's one of those shows that I would say to anybody listening to this, give it a couple episodes to really get to know everybody. Because there's some characters in there that, in particular, one of the vigilantes in it. And I'm not going to delve too much into this, but Vigilante is an example of a character that I was like uncomfortable the portrayal of in it. Now 6 episodes in, I'm like, I'm all in. I'm like, this is so good. It's very much its own thing, and I really found that I love every character. And there's a story that's in there that there's the backstory of Chris, the Peacemaker. There is relationships associated with that. There is the current day story of him and his team that he's working with right now. There is this looming threat that they're dealing with right now. There is this growing sense of morality. And there's also the aftermath of the Suicide Squad movie and events that happened in there that are a part of it. So it's got a little bit of something for everybody in it. And like episode 6, there is so much to wrap up in 7 and 8. And I'm being deliberately vague on this because I don't want to wreck it for you or anybody who hasn't watched it yet, but jump into this and give it a chance, people out there listening, because if you aren't, it's a great series. The other piece I'd highly recommend, they've been releasing along with every episode an official HBO podcast, and it's really, really good. It's reactions to the show, it's interviews with the cast, it's really, really, it's like a 24-minute like bonus. It's really well put together and cooks. And the pacing of it seems to be like the perfect length for a podcast of this nature. And I really enjoy the companion podcast. I enjoyed the Watchmen one that they had put together. And this is the same level of quality. Each episode's getting their own companion podcast. And it's been a great way to just get a little more bang for the buck out of the series, if that makes any sense, in between waiting for it. Every Thursday this show's out, and it's a really good one. I am praying for season 2 because I want season 2 of Peacemaker. I wouldn't mind if they do like something else with some other cast members from Suicide Squad. Great. And that's not diminishing the possibility of that or my interest in that. I'd love to see it. But I want more Peacemaker, which at the beginning of this, if you'd say, Sean, are you going to be this excited about this character and the team that he's working with? I want him and this cast. Like, there is something special about this cast. And they've really made me a believer in this show. So I'd love season 2 of this. I hope we get more of it because it's different. It's remember the Harley Quinn animated series? Like the first episode, I wasn't sure how to feel about it and then just absolutely grew to adore it.
Yep.
This is the same thing where it was like episode 1. I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this. I mean, I enjoyed it, but I wasn't where I am now. Now I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like the greatest thing ever. And it's naughty too, which is nice. I mean, it's not.
You kind of need to have that. And it's funny, like, I did a Suicide Squad, watched it with Dad. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's the main thing slowing me down right now is we've got our Fire Stick is on only the one TV, and that's the main TV, that we watch stuff on. So for me to watch it without Dad, I got to pick times when he's not around or he's asleep or he's doing something else. And I haven't had a chance to really get a good time in there because I figured I'd run the Suicide Squad with him, see if he liked it, then I could go into Peacemaker. And he liked the action, but he didn't like the comedy of it. I'm like, that's kind of, you need to enjoy that to enjoy the rest of the stuff. So, Dad's isn't big on the superhero genre, or he likes high action, but that mixture of the comedy and action kind of like, it wasn't his cup of tea. So I got to pick my spot when I can watch this.
And respect, because it's one of those things where it's either your cup of tea or it's not. I think this is a show that that's one of the reasons why I do say for people listening, give it a couple episodes before you judge it if it's right for you, because I think you really need that to figure out what's going on, and to see that there's a lot more depth to it. Because in the early episodes, it's a lot more of the comedy, and it leads to a lot more of the heart, I should say, of the series. Because 6 episodes in, if you were to ask me, is this straight up comedy show? No, it's actually got a lot more heart to it than comedy even, which is strange to say. Lots of action, lots of comedy, it's all there, but it's the heart of it that's real. Like, I love these characters. Cool. And there are characters from the movie that are in this show. And it's like the right mix of new characters and the right mix of characters from the movie that you would like to see in this. So there's a lot going on here. I'm glad that they're using HBO Max for this type of content, where it's things that you're like, this wouldn't work on the CW, this wouldn't work as a film. It really works on HBO Max. The idea of this being this, fan outreach kind of thing, I'm hoping this is doing well, because this is the kind of content I want to see out of a streaming service. Give me something I couldn't have gotten before. And this is an example of a show. Where else would you put this? It's got to be on HBO Max. And I'm glad for this. My biggest fear when we were losing the DC app, for television content, was we were going to lose this kind of stuff. I'm hoping we continue to get more of it. I know we've got a podcast coming that is going to be the animated series, the Batman animated series. That's going to be coming, an audio podcast based on that with the original cast. So there's more stuff coming that they're exploring in this HBO Max, and I'm glad they're kind of like saying, well, nobody else is really doing podcast content mixed into there as well. They're kind of really playing around with like what media they're providing on HBO Max, and I think it's really cool.
Now, when you say original cast, are you talking Mark Hamill as the Joker?
I don't know about that. Kevin Conroy.
So we need yes, check one there, but do we got the other check? Because that's
I don't know.
Those are because yes, Kevin Conroy is always going to be the voice of Batman. We've gotten plenty of actors out there who've done amazing jobs, amazing voiceover, physical actor. I get it, but every time I read, I still hear his voice.
Yeah, and it's funny. I've been watching that series again lately. Boy, does it hold up.
Yeah. When
you think about how old that is. So what's known as Alan Burnett's back, kind of guiding the ship on this one. It's going to... They're like trying to determine what podcast platforms are going to be. Not trying to determine. I think that's in the background. We don't know that yet. It's Kevin Conroy's back. There's talk about a lot of the cast members that are surviving, because a lot of the original cast voice actors from the animated series are still alive, which is a good thing. As far as them coming back, but it's unknown which ones are coming back for this. So I'm hoping that they end up getting all of the available ones back. But I'm really excited to see where this goes. John Glover, who played the Riddler, is coming back.
Oh, cool.
So,
I'll be honest with you. With the voice actors, as I said, they've done some great jobs with it.
Yep.
So if they don't get him, I understand. It's not going to be like, it's a deal breaker. Nah, but it's one of those things I do wonder if they can bring him back, because he did kind of say he was retired from it and he was going to do other stuff, but you never know. Never say never. I hope.
Yeah, well, he's come back to do the character again for different reasons. Like he did Killing Joke and things like that. So I think the question is the project enticing enough to make him want to come back to it? And I think that's going to be the key where, they may make him a pitch and go, oh, you're going to do that? I might be in for that. So I'm hoping there's an outreach to him and that he would consider it. One thing it tells you if he does come back for it is the level of quality of it immediately. It's not a statement of lack of quality if he doesn't, but it certainly gives you a one-up on, okay, he came back, which means there's something that got him excited, which is always a good thing.
It's something else. I jumped on IMDb to look to see if I can see anything, and I'm at the Peacemaker site, and I just see that the actress who played Tasty from Orange is the New Black, Danielle Brooks, is in it. So I'm like, okay, now there's even more motivation for Jim to see this, because that's cool.
Oh, yeah, the casting on Peacemaker.
She's an amazing actress. So she was one of those, because Orange is the New Black is one of those shows I was watching. I saw from beginning to end. Absolutely wonderful, amazing series. And she is one of the actresses who really just impressed me on the emotional range and expression that she could put out there. She's got some serious acting chops, and I was like, it's one of those things where you're like, dang, and when you're watching a show and it emotionally affects you, and it's not real, it's just a TV show, but it tugs at your heartstrings. She did a beautiful job in that. So, I'm like, damn, I got to definitely check this out.
Yeah, that's why I was saying before. I think one of the strengths of the show is the cast. I mean, there is a team that's there. That's what I want. That's why when I want season 2, I want season 2 with the cast back. I'm actually at the point. It's kind of like with Titans, where I was feeling that out in the beginning. Now, you get a few episodes in, and you really get a groove for what they're doing. And man, I'm at that place. I'm at that place for this show. Our first discussion this episode is going to be Peacemaker Disturbing the Peace. Written by Garth Ennis, art by Gary Brown, colors by Lee Loughridge, letters by Rob Steen, cover by Juan Ferreira. It's Ferreyra. Variant cover by Gary Brown and Lee Loughridge. 125 variant cover by Ryan Brown. 150 variant cover by Amanda Connor and Alex Sinclair. The senior editor is Katie Kubert, the associate editor is Ben Mears, and the publication design by Darren Robinson, and publication production by Sandy Alonso. And it's funny, when you talk about publication design and production, this is a book that's oozing with design. I am a huge Garth Ennis fan, so like my interest in Peacemaker aside, because I'm interested in Peacemaker now, obviously because of the TV shows and everything, hearing Garth Ennis' name on a DC book just has me nothing but super excited. He is such an amazing talent, and I'm really excited to. I mean, this delivered. This is Garth Ennis on a DC Black Label book that is telling the background of Peacemaker. So interesting. I loved this. What did you think? And what is your? I mean, Preacher, I'm sure, is a thing that you've. I don't know if you read all of it, but I know you read a decent amount of it. So Garth's work on Preacher aside, what is your experience with Garth Ennis, and does that get you excited for a book that he's on it?
Okay, experience with him is limited. As you said, I've read some Preacher, I've read some other stuff on him, but he is a name that every time I hear it, I want to read it. Mm-hmm. Because I've never read anything by him that I didn't enjoy. He's on that list of mine of name recognition of books I will pick up. I've got, as I said, I've had that list of creators. His name is on that list. I see his name on a book, I'm going to be interested in it. And it was funny because when I first picked this up, I picked it up because it was Peacemaker, not because of Garth Ennis. And then as I'm opening, I flip, I'm like, oh, wow, he wrote this. Oh, cool. So it was one of those neat things where going into it, I didn't know he wrote it until actually I started reading the book. I bought it based on Peacemaker, not based on Garth Ennis. But again, you're going into it already feeling good. So it's, he's got that really cool style to him, where it's he's got a grit to it, but it's not like a over the top gritty to be gritty. He does that nice level of nastiness in there where it needs to be nasty, but then you've got the times when it doesn't have to be gratuitous, it doesn't have to be over the top. But if he needs to go there, he's going to go there. I think it's the story drives how dark and twisted and nasty he's going to get. You know, and it's one of those things where he can dance nicely, but if he needs to, and again, it's one of those where it just drops off the shelf, where you're going along and bam, it hits you, and he has that impact where the moments you're like, oh dang, you know.
Oh, and wait, his way of showing us why Peacemaker's the way he is and how his childhood affected him. Whoa, he hits you over the head with a brick. I mean, it's like, the kid walks in to his mother. So he's being interviewed by by this doctor who's, clearly trying to get in touch with his issues and his background and everything like that, knows his story. And, she's there. We know this is not going to go well. Something's going to go wrong here. But she's delving into his backstory, and we're seeing mother and stepfather of, like, life got so bad that they just ended it all. They put the twins in the washer and the baby in the oven. I mean, how bad does life got to get that that's how you decide? Like, not only are we going out, we're going out in a big way. And to the point of what you were saying earlier, there's points in time where things are put in for shock value that you're like, okay, that was really done, gratuitous and over the top for shock value. In this case, you're like sitting here like, what does that do to this kid? And he's telling this story matter-of-factly.
Yes.
Like, he is telling this with very little emotion, very little affect to it. And I think that's where the art is key to this. Because his presentation is one of, like, you and I would be sitting around, like, we just got together recently and had dinner. And we had, it was just casual conversation. We were sitting there getting caught up on life. He's having that kind of conversation about this, which is just, wow. Her reaction is the key, because she's, like, disturbed by it. That last part's not in the file. And he's like, I imagine there's a lot that's not in your file. You want to know stuff? Okay, let me tell you. It's so good.
Well, and again, it's one of those things where I'm reading this, and I'm hearing John Cena's voice. By the way,
yeah.
And it's that because he does that was it the Miz called it Robo John, where it's just very straightforward, blah blah blah, blah like that. And he's got just that very even keel, monotone, no inflection that he can do. I completely hear that in this, and as you said, it's just matter of fact. It was actually a beautiful day, sunny and breezy, sort of weather that promises endless possibilities. That's how he's describing the day his mother, stepfather, and siblings all died. I'm like, oh my God. Absolutely. I was like, holy crap. And again, it was one of those neat things where you're starting that off and you flip the page, and right there, big and bold, stepfather's killing self, mother's head's in the oven, and then he describes what happened to the twins and the baby, and you're like, oh, dang. As you said, hit you in the head with a brick. And going right, Ben, right to that look in the psychiatrist's face was like, this right here was just, 3 pages laid out absolutely perfect. As you're just flipping through, you're just like, holy crud. And then it gets even worse. And you're like, how does it get worse from here? Because he starts talking about Scooter and Slinky. I'm like, man, this is absolutely brilliant. Origin of a villain, quasi-hero-ish. He sees himself. The origin of a peacemaker.
Well, and the beauty of the story with Scooter and Slinky is he got put into foster care. They were not the foster parents.
No.
He just happened to be in the back of the vehicle they were stealing. And I love the fact that he's there, and they're like, "Oh, let's end him." I mean, the Slinky is just like, let's just shoot him and be done with it. I mean, and was passionate, like, let's kill him, just because he happened to respond to them in a way that they thought was cool, he ended up surviving and wound up being their kid. Which is, what a messed up existence.
Well, and again, I love the fact when the shrink, the psychiatrist then questions how he was reacting to it. He's like, one, I was just waking up from a dream, but two, my life has always been turned upside down. I thought this was normal. And I love the fact that, again, how he is, looking at this, even as a kid, his life has been constantly crazy. The last two families he's had has been completely blown away. So, sure, okay, let's just roll with it. Again, deep emotional impact on this kid, what he went through, and then what he went through with the second parents, and now he's dealing with these two. Again, this is a perfect birth of this character. It kind of really does show where he's coming from, who he is, what he's about. And I'm like, man, this is absolutely brilliant on the story. It was funny. At this point in time, I wanted more Peacemaker stories. I wanted more of this person. I wanted to see more, one, of his past. I want to see more of him in the present. Mm-hmm. It was one of those things where, like, yes, I want this, The
interesting part is, he's telling his story the same way that you would. It's like, and yeah, it was kind of tough being brought up that way. I went into the Army, and she's like shocked. She's like, they let you in? And, he's basically relaying, in the infantry and the Rangers, the Green Berets, on exchange with the SAS, and finally Delta. These are things where he's like, I had a pretty detailed career and went through the ranks. And, he's leaving out a lot of details.
Well, he talks about after, Slinky and, Scooter had gone, he went back into more Foster stuff. And he's like, I'll leave that, we don't need that. Let's just skip over the next 7 years. Just foster care stuff, fighting off giant MILF, stabbing, that sort of thing. As if that kind of stuff is normal. It's not normal, dude. What else happened to him in those 7 years? But it's funny, I like the fact that he did state about how when she was shocked they took him in. He's right. The Army, any of the militaries, really, they do have a psychological profile. But it's very easy to get past that initial profile, especially when you're just, infantry enlisted, and then when he got into Rangers and we got the, Special Forces, there's going to be psychological tests, but the tests aren't about, are you a sociopath? The tests are whether you can take the emotional extreme, the emotional responses, the stress of the situation. And he's a guy who can 100% handle the stress. He's a little bit out there, other things. And if they did deep dives like they're doing with this new special assignment, they would have identified it. But within the military, then within any of the armed forces or their specialized units, they're not going to have that level of psychological testing. So I really dig these things. How he is able to move through the ranks very easily. How someone of his mindset could very easily go through one training to another to the next.
Yeah, and that was something that was really cool. This Lasting Silence mission was where we start to see, okay, not only is he leaving things out of this, but what else is he leaving things out of? Because, he's talking about the imbecile leading it and how, there was a main force and there was me, and, I decided to just kind of go forward and handle it myself. Piece of cake, no big deal. The main force didn't arrive. And he's like, no, they never arrived at all. There's something he's not saying as we're going forward. And, he's talking about the fact that I copied the file, I deleted the original, So, you're seeing, well, he's effective. He was accomplishing the mission goals. And you're starting to see why this is why he got away with stuff. Because in the end, he accomplished the mission. You've got this guy who is, quote unquote, effective, but there's more to the story that's going on there. Now, all of a sudden, he's starting to reveal pieces that he knows, because he's saying, hey, would some of this concern your decision to recommend that my application for further service be rejected? Now she's like panicked. She's like, I told my friends I'm here. What do you mean? And she's realizing he knows a lot of information now just by that one reveal about her that she does not want him to know, and it puts her at risk. Really, really cool the way that this started playing out. And you see that he he comes off as a bit crazy at times, but then you see how competent he really is, and that he does have resources, he does have contacts, and he's able to use them. I like that balance with him, that you get there, that she's walked into something now that she's in over her head immediately.
Well, one, strategery definitely applies to him. Two, the intelligence is absolutely wonderful. Again, he is, for all practical purposes, a spy. And you don't become a good spy if you're not intelligent. If you can't, if you don't have the preparation ahead of time, to lay out to identify the traps, to identify what's happening, to see that, he's in a world where experienced, trained assassins want to kill him, and he has lived this long to do it. When you are that good, there is a level of just skill that you have to have. There's a lot of people who are CIA agents, they're operatives, or various things. He is a spy, flat out. There's a big difference between that. It's kind of like someone being a soldier versus being a warrior. This person who's a soldier is a member of the army. If they need to fight, they'll do it. But then there's those warriors who have that killer mindset, who have that mindset that is required to do what needs to be done and to get it done. He is a spy. He's a warrior. He is beyond, just an everyday grunt out there. He is something that is a whole other level. And that's something this book really did show. Before I always put him in the category of, he's an assassin. He's a killer. Okay, yeah. That's a whole other thing. There's killers and assassins are another caliber, another quality, that you need to have a level. That's what I always put him at. He's beyond that. He, again, it's going to sound like a weird distinction, but there is a difference between a warrior and an assassin. Both are skilled killers. Both can do the job, but an assassin will handle it different ways. Deadshot is an assassin, flat out. Peacemaker's a warrior. So yes, he's got the same kill level, same skill at killing people as Deadshot does, but he's got a different motivation. He's got a different means to do it and reasoning behind he's doing it. And it's kind of neat to see that, in this book. I'm really getting a cool understanding just from this book, of who he is and what he's about. And I love the fact that he knew she was looking into him. He knew she was hiding stuff, and in the moment he catches her on it, you can see that panic in her eyes, like, I'm about to die. That's the thoughts going through her head, and to the point where she's like, I can't. She's like, look, are you absolutely certain I can't smoke? She needed to smoke because she needed to calm down, and I love the fact that we really see her getting flustered and just so, oh my God, I'm going to die right now. And you can see that in her eye. You can see that and tell that it's just the way she's, the way they have her talking. And again, as I'm reading this, I can hear the panic in her voice. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and the interesting piece is she's revealing now, okay, I can't see everything deep into the files, but there's some things that don't add up. Like, your infantry missions. Well, all the people you're with died from friendly fire.
Yeah.
There's the Ranger, Lieutenant Martin Stone, died when one of the grenades he was carrying exploded by accident, the rest by sympathetic detonation. This was described as a definite first. James Stryker actually survived, but he's also learning to walk again. Also to speak, eat unaided, clean himself, and spell, because he's got a snake in his face. We see that biting on him. It's really great. I mean, this is the tank crew is asphyxiated. So there's, again, every mission he was involved in, the people that he was working with have all died.
Yep. Well, and I love the fact that she's like thinking it's him, and he's like, and he just comes out and says, yeah, that was me. Every one of them. And every one of them had it coming.
Yep.
The tank crew, human trafficking pipeline. The off-duty, that Stryker was a cartel enforcer. Stone, a pederast. The other three of his friendly fires, they killed a businessman's family in Mogadishu after a heroin deal went sour. So he's taking out all these bad guys.
Yep.
Yes, he is a killer. Yes, he is a nasty person, but he is taking out, it's a balance kind of thing in his mindset. Yep. And again, I love the fact that he's this very straightforward, blunt, just no emotion on his face, but the look on her face, like the big wide eyes, like, oh my God.
Yeah, and that's, I think, one of the great reactions is they do this whole issue is them sitting on a bench talking.
Yeah.
Is the narrative component of it. The background, the narrator of the story is really the two of them just exploring this together. And I love that backdrop is kind of framing everything up, because it just really works for this, because her reactions are really critical to this, because he doesn't have them.
Yeah.
He's just very calm, very matter of fact, very conversational. And I love that just stays throughout the entire thing. It makes the stories just far more interesting when you shift to these sequences where we see him like taking charge, walking on the scene, killing people, because he believes in what he's doing, which is an interesting sort of thing considering his upbringing. Like, where did this desire to kind of make people pay who did something wrong? And you kind of start to see the roots of that in his childhood and how he was brought up with people who were doing wrong, just made decisions to resent them and resent what they were bringing to the table. It starts with his parents straight on through. It's an interesting sort of piece.
And of course, Bob was awesome.
And Bob was Bob.
Bob was Bob. Dude, again, that was another brilliant one. Again, a giant shark, took out the other evil extraction team who had killed a bunch of people. Again, leveling the playing field. Just cleaning out, cleaning house. He was taking care of the bad, taking out the evil people. And I do love the fact that this whole time he knows she went to the FBI. Not only does he know she went to the FBI, he's got a line of sight on the FBI van that's watching them and monitoring them. It was awesome because he picked the cemetery to meet. Why? Oh, I like it. It's peaceful here. No, he picked there because he wanted open line of sight so he could see the FBI agents. The whole time, he knows she's wearing a wire. He doesn't mind. He's admitting to multiple homicides, knowing they won't touch him, knowing there's absolutely no way they're coming after him, because he is in too deep. He is too good at what he does. The U.S. government wants this guy, needs this guy for whatever operation they've got. And that's one of the things that I really loved about this in the end, that it 100%. He's flat out admitting all this that he's done, knowing they're not going to touch him. Not only don't they touch him, the second he identifies them, they take off. They abandon the doctor who they gave a wire to interview and talk to this homicidal maniac to get him to confess, and then completely leave her there, figuring, he's going to kill her. But they're okay with that because they got what they need and they're taking off.
And peeled out. It was like, I don't want any chances. Got pulled that gun, start shooting at our vehicle. We're getting out of here now. She's gone. And I think they were assuming she's dead. I mean, this is it. Yes. She is done.
They're thinking she's dead.
But he's telling her the truth. He's like, listen, there's no reason to kill you. You're, aside from the library books issue, I was meaning to return those. You're a good person. And I love that he's like, I wouldn't kill you. I mean, it's not, what are you kidding? For him, there's a clear code to that. And there was no hesitation there. She could at this point punch him and he wouldn't kill her.
He may for that one.
Well, no, I really don't think so. Not unless, sure. Because, he would take that as, okay, you have a reaction to a difference in what you believe are moral differences, but I would not kill you over that. I really believe that he would not touch her over that. And I think it's kind of interesting that you get to know organically through the story that this maniac has got a code.
Well, it's even, it's kind of interesting because you look at him when he's just laying this out, where he's talking about, just how he's cleaning up the messes and he gets the job done. It's not a big deal. But even as he went back to when he starts talking about, with, Skeeter and Slinky, Scooter and Slinky, how he was the one who ratted them out. But not only ratted them out, he was the one who killed them in the end. Yeah. The police lit them up, shot the holy heck out of them. Scooter's trapped in the car. He closes the car door and lets them burn to death. Slinky's laying there paralyzed and goes and just pinches the nose, closes his mouth, and she dies right there. This kid at 10 just killed 2 people. And it needed to be done because he knew these 2 were absolutely over the top, needed to be taken out. And it was like, kind of like, in a way, it's the beginning of what he does now. This was his first kill. But I do love the fact that she had to 100% question him, did you kill your parents? Even when he said no. He's like, come on, seriously, I gotta know. Is this, and the whole time he's like, no, I didn't kill them. It was the birth of the idea, but I didn't kill them. And I love the fact that, he's being completely honest with her. And I was like right along with her this whole time thinking, did he kill the parents? And I'm trying to figure out how could a little kid set up the suicide and all that stuff. And no, I believe he didn't kill them.
Agreed.
But
yeah, I totally agree with you. He did not kill. He did not kill them, and I think his story's legit. I think what he's telling her is exactly what happened.
Again, yeah, and it's brilliant on how this was the birth of it. It wasn't seeing them die. It was when he started reading that long list of human failures that the stepfather wrote out in the suicide note. That was the beginning of his understanding of just I don't want to say the futility of life, but just how there's just, it was one of those weird moments. This was his Batman moment. You think Batman as a kid witnessed his parents die, so he swore no one will ever suffer the way I've suffered, and it started him down his noble path of being Batman. Seeing just this complete, degradation of human society send him down his path. Send him down his thing. Scooter and Slinky added to it. The other Foster stuff added to it. All this stuff, but this right here, this was the birth of the idea. Yeah. And I love the fact that, again, we're getting this character who, it's childhood drama that created the Peacemaker.
I think we were talking earlier about Ennis's writing, and what's so great about it is you have these extremely brutal moments that are in there where he really skirts the line, and it's downright naughty. But it's met with these moments of just great character development, great character growth. Preacher was filled with stuff like this, but it wasn't like shock value with no depth. It was these moments led to this really long explanation of what, like, and I'm going to say long explanation, I don't mean long-winded. It was more, there's a lot of depth to the explanation of how this impacted the character and how this motivates the character. And at the end of the day, that's what's interesting about his writing. Not everybody can be a Garth Ennis. Not everybody can do this. But he has a talent for being able to show just how these events really grow and impact a character and change them along the way and mold them into who they are. My understanding of Peacemaker, at least how he's being seen in the comics right now, is wow. Yeah. Very, 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 very
dramatic change in how I look at this character. And this is absolutely brilliant story. That it does that in a single story, really changes the way you look at somebody. And I do love this ending, where he's sitting there talking to about, just giving people peace. Yeah. Giving these horrible people peace. And he's like, look at them. Look at how peaceful they are. See, and you're looking over and on all the tombstones and all that stuff, and just the cemetery, and you're just like, whoa! That again, it adds to there is some serious issues going on in this boy's head, and we knew that reading it, but that ending piece there, and I love again the look on the doctor's face of just that pure shock and oh my god, who am I sitting next to? Even after hearing everything, it still takes it up to another level. He does kick it up to an 11, and I'm just like, man, this right here, a great ending to it. And it does. I 100% think he doesn't kill her, Agreed. But there is still a moment of doubt in your brain that makes you wonder, does he kill her or not? And I like that.
Really?
The fact that,
Really? I think there's zero chance he gets. Really, and I'm not saying you're wrong. I mean, you are right to have your feeling off of it, but I totally was of the mindset no, because he's got a code. It's kind of defined by who he is, and there is no need to bring her peace. She doesn't fall into the category. Like I think this issue laid out This is for myself, by the way. This issue laid out his reasoning and rationale, like back to his parents. He read through, like, now, if he read through paperwork from her or like in his backstory of her, found some things that were traumatic. But I think what he found out from her is very clear early on that, like, the only thing you got going on is a missing library book, you know? And I mean, I think that's, like, if that had unveiled anything else where she needed peace, I think then there would be an inkling of, I don't think the library book's enough to put that on the table. But it was interesting seeing how it was rooted in what he learned about why his parents, the stepfather and the mother, did what they did.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty interesting to me in the story.
And again, I completely agree with you. And that's why as I said, I'm 99.9% sure, confident that he doesn't kill her. But the thing that did make me think, that put that little moment, that thought of possibility, is after that final page, when you flip it and it's a blank page. Mm-hmm. Now, it could just be a blank page to be a blank page, or it could be the Sopranos, where everything goes black.
Well, I think where he goes from there is open to interpretation, but I don't think it's killing her.
Right. Again, I don't think he did, but it does. It's one of those weird things when I was reading this and I flipped the page, and it's completely just black screen, blank page, and then you go on to the creative team and whatnot and all that. But it was one of those things I was like, did they just give us a Tony Soprano ending? Did they just give us a Soprano ending? Come on, no, man. So that was why it enters my head. And then you go back and you reread it and you're like, no, I don't think he killed her. I don't think he had a reason to.
Yeah, I totally.
But it is I tell you, man, I've read this thing a couple times now, mm-hmm. and it's just again, we read them normally. I normally read it 3 times for any time we record. This one I've read more than that, just out of sheer enjoyment and just going back through. And it's one of those books that Again, I want more of this. I want more Peacemaker. I would love to see what happens to her, how she deals with this, because this is a serious mind, mess up here for her. That I'm like, man, how does she survive this? Not physically, mentally.
This is available right now for anybody listening to this. If you didn't, and you've got the DC Infinite subscription, it came out day and date on DC Infinite. So if you have that platform, you can get it there. I bought it, so I own it. But I bought it knowing that we were going to talk about it for the show, and I was intrigued by it. It's Garth Ennis. It's funny knowing that I could still grab it on the app. I still wanted the tangible ownership of it. It was important to me, and I'm really glad I own this because it was really that good. It is funny how that's still a driving factor in me, even though I've got this subscription for DC Infinite. It reads great on there, by the way. So if you've got the app, read it, enjoy it. It's a great book. Seek out more stuff from Garth Ennis, because I really feel like if you enjoyed this, and you haven't read much of his work, this is very much a Garth Ennis like teaser, as far as why you should be following this writer and the things that he does. But you read The Boys, right?
Yes.
Well, which was him. So I mean,
I know. Yeah.
So you do have exposure to him.
Well, I've got big time exposure to him. So I've read a lot of his stuff. I'll be honest, I haven't read all of The Boys. I haven't read all of Preacher either. Yeah. And it's one of those things where I wish I just had time to sit down and read them all. And I'll be honest, with Preacher, I need to start from the beginning and just reread it from beginning to end. Is what I want to do. I want to do the same thing with The Boys. I want to do with Sandman. I'm trying to work through Sandman. There's all these epic tales that are out there that I wish I could just sit down and just read from beginning to end and just enjoy myself. And I don't have time, unfortunately.
What I love right now is I've got novels that I'm getting caught up in enjoying now. I've got trade collections that I'm enjoying. Audiobooks are becoming a thing. The Sandman audio, Volume 2 came out, and I'm making my way through that on Audible right now, and it's terrific. I started listening again to HBO's Batman podcast, that 10-episode deal that they did, because it's really, really good. Have you had a chance to listen to that whole thing yet?
No, I haven't. And I need to. And it's funny, every time you mention these things, I'm like, I got to do that. I got to listen to that. And I'll be honest with you, with the way work is, I probably could listen to those while working. Mm-hmm. But for me in work, I like having I like having background music. But like I'm currently listening to a lot of classical music, while I'm working. I've got it playing, and it's good. It's good background music, and it keeps me, and I'm able to focus on what I'm doing. Whenever I listen to actual songs, I stop working and I listen to the song. So I'm worried if I listen to the audio podcast, I'm going to listen to that and not work. And that's where I'm running into my issues with finding, again. So I've got this huge block of time when I maybe could do something, but I can't listen to the stuff and do my job at the same time. So I got to pick or choose. And, so I'll be honest with you, I'd choose the podcast stuff over work if I could get away with it in a heartbeat. But,
that pesky work thing, it gets in the way. It gets in the way of everything.
Yeah, I know. I need to hit the lottery so I can just retire, and then spend all my time reading comic books, watching TV, and listening to audiobooks.
That's making a contribution.
Exactly. Our next discussion is on Deathstroke Inc., issue number 5. The writer is Joshua Williamson with Paolo Pantalina on art, with colorist Hi-Fi. Steve Wands is the letterer, Howard Porter and Hi-Fi on cover. Ivan Tao is the variant cover. Nathan Zerdy is the ratio variant cover. Lucio Parrillo is the Peacemaker variant cover. Ben Abernathy is editor. Deathstroke created by Marv Wolfman and George Perez.
So it's funny, this is a book that I've been stockpiling. And not because of not disinterest or anything like that. I mean, my gosh, you got Joshua Williamson writing It's Deathstroke and Black Canary. You've got me in. I read the Batman Urban Legends story, was really excited for the series. I just never got to this. And when we were looking for topics for the show, I'm like, let's talk about that. Because, first of all, it'd get me reading the book. And I really wanted to see how I felt about it because I was excited for the book. So the anticipation was there. It's funny, I come home from work and I've been falling asleep on the couch, and how it's happening is, I've been really focused on health, so I've been working out a lot, and, I'll do the treadmill and do, like, this lengthy workout. Then my wife and I are just trying to spend more, like, quality, like, making the evening some quality time to spend together. We'll watch some favorite shows, whether it's, like, we're making our way through The Office again, but then we'll watch, like, stuff like 1883, Yellowstone, we're watching the Olympics now, just cool stuff that we're watching together. Well, invariably what ends up happening with me is I fall asleep during that. About 10 o'clock, I'm out like a light. Well, for me, I wake up partway through the night. Like, the cats will come looking for me. So I'll wake up at, like, sometimes 2, sometimes 3, sometimes 4, somewhere around there, and I'll go upstairs. Well, by that point, I'm awake. So I will read either a novel, a chapter of a novel. I'll read a couple comic books, and I will get tired and I'll fall back to sleep. And at least then I'm enjoying the whole process instead of just laying there. So I started reading Deathstroke Inc. and I read the first issue. I read all 5. I could not put this bad boy down. And I mean, it's probably the most sincere compliment I could give to it is like every issue got me more. I'm like, oh, well, I really should go to sleep, but it's here. I can start reading it. And it's a compliment that I can give this book. It really reads well, as like doing like a single sitting and enjoying multiple issues. And I really loved reading all 5 issues that way. And I didn't intend to. I really thought I was going to make it through 1, maybe 2 issues, and then I was going to get tired. No, this book, woo, the artwork from Howard Porter, the writing of Joshua Williamson, just the characterizations, it really nailed this story. And I was anticipating this. I thought this was a book that I was really going to enjoy. Had no idea how much I would really have fun with this. But I didn't end up going to sleep. I just read this. And I got up, I went to work, and I have 0 regrets because I was like, yay, DC, that was awesome. What a great read. I was tired by the end of the day, so to speak, but I would do it again in a heartbeat. This book was that good.
Oh, God, yeah. It was funny because I was laughing because you'd said you had stockpiled it, and you're like, hey, let's do this so I can read it. when you suggested, I was like, yeah, let's do that because I've only read issue 1. So I had the other 4 issues that I had to go through. And, with me and my reading schedule, what I do is before work, I read a comic. And then after work, I read a comic. Well, when I picked up Deathstroke, I read, I read the first 2 issues in the beginning. Normally I just read one, I go on to work, like, that was too good. I'm going to the second one. So I read both the first 2 issues. Well, actually 2 and 3, because I'd already read 1. So I read 2 and 3, and then that evening, at the end of work, I read the rest of the stuff, and I got completely caught up. So it was neat with this one, where one day got me caught up, or else it could be a couple of days, I'll be all caught up. Oh no, I had to keep going, because like you said, this reads really well. Boom, 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 going down the line. And even with my multiple read-throughs, I went back and I started again from the beginning, did other read-throughs through the series and stuff like that. So this is a really cool story that again, Deathstroke is a character I really like, so I'm like, this right here is a really cool version of Deathstroke. This is a really cool story of him, and I'm very excited for issue 6.
Yeah, I am too. It's the relationship between the two of them is pretty critical for me, because you've got this odd couple where they have reasons to trust each other, but also reasons to not trust each other, which is really an interesting thing. She's sharing things like right at the kick off the issue. I went to a haunted house once in Star City, one of the fun ones. Roy was young and had a blast. Ollie just kept his eyes closed the whole time. And I love how, he's coming back, he's got to weigh in. Sounds like him. I took my boys to one of those once. We got kicked out. And she's like, why? And he's like, someone tried to scare me, so I beat the snot out of them. And I'm sitting here this is so great. Because the dialogue just matches these two characters. Then they just move on. That was how they opened the issue. And it was absolutely the perfect way to open the issue, because you got to make this really cool. And I say odd couple. It's one of the things that I love about this. This is a pairing you're putting who together in a comic? Yeah. I don't know how you pitched this, but it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
Well, and again, that was a neat way how they brought them together in the initial couple issues of how they approached Black Canary. Deathstroke was an easy sell, but again, being Deathstroke, it wasn't just about the money for him. He was trying to figure out what was going on. He's like, yeah, sure, I'll take the money, playing off as that's what he was really after. But he was Deathstroke. He was really after the intel as to what is actually happening here. Canary, same deal. Makes it look like, oh, yeah, I'll sign up for you. In reality, she's operating as an agent for Oracle. So I love the fact that both these two characters, as much as different as they are, they have very common grounds. They are both, again, they both have that kind of spy mentality. They both have that undercover operative mindset that you need to use to infiltrate an organization. I think that's why these two work so well together. They completely understand each other, and they're not, going to be best friends. They're not even going to be friendly, but they will get the mission done. They will get the job done. And I liked how it was these two, because, as we said multiple times, Dinah is just a wonderful character if you do her right. If you play her right as this strong, intelligent, powerful woman, she plays off great, and she fits that role. Deathstroke's another one. He's not just a killing machine. You've got to have more layers to him as to how he plays out with his code of conduct, with the contract is the contract, all those different stuff that he's got played out there. Plus, there is that level of intelligence that he has that you need to have if you're in his line of work for as long as you've been in it and for as successful as you've been. You need to have that. That's why these two are a great pairing.
What I loved about this issue in particular is what is real and what is not. They both go through these two doors, one personal to each of them, and it takes them both on this journey where they're in this fantasy world, and the fantasy world is very personal to them. We see Deathstroke with his kids, the whole family thing. We see her with Ollie and her whole family, and there's a lot of reason for the two of them to try and get pulled deeper and deeper into this fantasy world, because she's reconnecting with her mom. He's connecting with the kid that he lost, the kid that's dead. There's reasons that you are being pulled further and further into the world and kind of letting go of reality. So you know that this is fake, but you don't want it to be, so you keep going along for the ride. And it's interesting how they rebel against it in different ways, too, where he feels he doesn't deserve it. She feels that this is not real because it's almost like a violation. You know, it's a crooked nightmare created by Dr. Destiny. You know, she's seeing the rational of it. I love that there is such a passionate reason for the two of them to want to stay, though.
Well, and again, I love how he becomes the hero, she becomes the villain.
Yep.
It's the opposite sides of who they are. You know, and again, it was one of those neat moments. I love when you talk about it, when he sees Grant. That for me was just a great Deathstroke moment, because both when he sees Grant and when she sees her mom, they both have that same kind of like, oh my God moment. And I loved him how he just hugs him and immediately starts saying all the stuff he's always wanted to say to his kid. And that for me was just that really cool moment of him where he's saying, hey, I was horrible to you. I was horrible to all of you. I should have been a better father. I'm so sorry. He's got that chance to say the thing that's been burning at him inside. And he takes it and he says it right away. It was absolutely a wonderful piece to play out. And then as he's realizing this is just completely fake, this is not real. And again, Deathstroke is going to be Deathstroke. He's going to open up a can big time. And I love the fact that, she's angry that they made her do it, but he is a level beyond that they took this memory, that they took what could have been just this great moment for him, and they twisted it, and he's like, damn you for this, damn you. And just the anger, the rage, he is just so furious. I'm like, this is awesome, man.
And you see how these two could grow to be like stronger partners along the way.
Yeah.
She actually cares. She recognizes that like that violation that happened to her, and she knows that like, okay, I didn't see what he saw, but I know it was bad because I know what they were doing to me. So she gets it. And it was interesting to see, her compassion for him in that. I really liked that. I thought it was a really cool play out.
Yeah, big time. And I like the fact that she's like, it wasn't real. It was just a crooked lie. Something like that could never happen. He's like, I know. And the funny thing is, he was the hero. So basically, she's like saying, hey, she doesn't realize it, but she's just reinforcing the fact that you're not a hero. You're not a good guy. Because I don't know what she was thinking he was seeing, but she was seeing this horrific, life that could never actually happen. Well, yeah, he saw, to his mindset, a horrific life.
Libra, and the idea that they've been working for Libra all along. That this whole piece has been something that they've been played. And you get this idea of, she's trying to basically build this whole like trust council, this whole society, secret society of supervillains. And she's a part of all this. And you see the players that are there. And I love that they're going to something that hasn't been around in DC for a while, the Secret Society of the Supervillains. But the lineup is really cool. Count Vertigo, Monocle, Phobia, Dr. Moon, Dr. Destiny, The Calculator, Deadline, Prometheus, Tattooed Man, Shrapnel, the Body Doubles. I mean, just pulling characters that are competent, but are known to not really be members of any team. It's an interesting sort of group that they put together, and their powers together, when you look at the power set that's around that table, it's actually a compelling power set.
Well, I'll tell you, I love the concept behind what they're doing.
Yeah.
These are villains who aren't trying to conquer the universe. They're not trying to destroy the universe. They just want to make a little money. They just want to get rich. They just want to have no issues, no worries. They just want life to be easy for them. And that for me, is something that has always been kind of it makes you, I always wonder with the villains, why don't they do something like this? I love the rogues, the Flash rogues, because they've got that code among themselves where you don't mess with a rogue. It's about the job. It's not about the big scores of conquering the world. It's just about the job. This society is having that same kind of mindset, which actually works well for villains.
Yep.
And it's a neat idea that they've got all these people together. And again, I love the fact that it was the Calculator who was kind of sitting at the head of the table. He was the brains behind this operation. And I'm like, man, that's actually a really good usage of him. The ending's not so good for him, but the usage up to this point was absolutely wonderful.
And the whole thing, is flying under the radar. I love that Toymaker's sitting there too. Like it looked like he was with them. It looks like he was a part of their team, but this was too good to be true. Now, here's what I wonder about this, and it's something I really like about this story. Who's really on whose side? What's really happening here? I think that's where the intrigue is off of this. I think we're going to see twists and turns in this story. We already are, but I think additional ones along the way. And I'm hoping Toymaker isn't really with them. But I'm also can completely understand if he is. So that's one of those things where there's that part of me that can see the option for him maybe to be still. It's hard to say with the side of the Angels on this one because Deathstroke's involved. But I'm kind of hoping he's still with Team Deathstroke or somehow winds up back. But regardless, I actually love that I care about these characters and where this is going and what the ultimate conflict's going to be. And they've also given us an opponent in the Secret Society that the numbers are overwhelming for Dinah and Deathstroke, who are two incredibly talented combatants.
Well, I think the thing we're going to see with Toyman is how after, issue 6, how he handles what just happened. Because the ending of this is absolutely brilliant.
Yep.
Deathstroke pulls out the gun, shoots Calculator, and then shoots Libra. Boom. Right there, takes over, declares himself the leader. And he takes the throne, and he becomes the person who's now in charge. Now, how Toyman handles this is going to be the indicator, what side he's on. Because I 100% think, if these people fall in line to Deathstroke, he won't have a problem with it. He'll let them continue doing what they're doing, and he's going to be sitting at the chart, at the head of this. And I think if we find out that any of these people who just died weren't really people, but were toys made by the toy maker, then we know what side he's actually been on this whole time. But I don't think any of these are toys. Because I was thinking, the first thing I was thinking is, how do you keep Calculator? Because he's one of the villains that I absolutely love, but how do you keep him? Well, the only way you can keep him if that wasn't actually Calculator who got shot in the head, but a toy maker or manufacturer. But I don't think that's the case. I think we've lost the Calculator.
Yeah, I think so too. It's Toyman is really, really great. It's so you think Calculator's dead? You don't think this is a Dr. Destiny thing?
That was the other thing I was thinking. It could be a Destiny thing just to see how Deathstroke handles the situation, but I don't think so. I think this is actual real where he's actually shot these people. Because you see the look on Dinah's. Dinah's got blood on her hands, from Libra. But again, Destiny, if this was another illusion, it could very easily happen. So again, we may get issue 6 and it turns out this whole thing was a giant illusion, or we may actually have lost the Calculator. Because you think back to, with Oracle, she's got a new villain that's on the same level, actually probably better than the Calculator. So, with Seer, so we don't really need Calculator because he was a really good adversary to Oracle. But again, he's a great villain to have around. So I don't want him dead, but I don't see anything that says it other than maybe Deathstroke and Calculator were working together. And that first shot wasn't actually a bullet, but was a blank. Or something to make it look like he killed Calculator and took command. And Calculator is really still alive. But I really do think Labor's took one to the chest and she's dead. There's so many. It could be this, it could be that. But I do love this ending. I absolutely love the fact that Slade's sitting there like they're scared. They know something bad is coming. They're looking for a leader. And if there's going to be some kind of king of the supervillains, it's going to be me. And I love just that ending scene of him sitting in the throne. He's got the sword right there. He is taking over. Now, I think this is all real and not an imaginary thing, but we're going to find out in issue 6 because that's why I really need to see 6.
Yeah, I feel like that is something that is, for issue 6, what's really going on here? What's real? What's not? I love this issue established that reality can be played with.
Yeah.
My question with Calculator is, did Calculator plan for this?
See, how could he not? That's
right.
The thing. That is the thing that does make me wonder with Calculator. How could he not plan for Deathstroke killing him? You put Deathstroke in the room. you've been messing with him. How can you not think Deathstroke's going to kill you?
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like the old Samoa Joe fights we used to watch. You know, Joe is gonna kill you. You know, Deathstroke's gonna kill you. It's the same kind of mindset. You start messing with this guy, and he's gonna put a bullet in you. So, Calculator, as smart as he is, should have planned for this, and maybe he did. Maybe that's why I'm thinking he could potentially be a toy. You know, be a toy maker toy. But again, I don't know because you see the blood that Dinah has on her from Libra. So it's maybe he only prepared for himself, not anybody else in the room.
Yeah. It's was this book what you expected it to be?
No, actually, I knew it was gonna be cool because I like Deathstroke, and you know, you say Dinah and Deathstroke, that's gonna be a neat combo. But I 100% did not think it would go this route. So they're taking this to a whole nother, you know, where are they going to go with this? Because it's funny, the plan that the society has about uniting all the villains and uniting them to work with some heroes and actually say, hey, we could have a peace, you know, for this, you know, planning for these big events. Basically saying, well, let's not wait on the Justice League to save everything. Let's do it ourselves, and while we're doing it, we'll make some money. You know, and I could see them, you know, taking different heroes and trying to work with different heroes, saying, "Hey, yeah, I'm a bad guy, but I don't do this," but you know, like laying out, saying, "Yeah, it's better to work with me than to work with someone like Luthor or work with, you know, Joker." You know, there's level of bad guys here. We're not so bad. And it's one of those things I could see them doing those kind of stories with certain heroes. Now, any member of the Bat family is probably going to tell you to pound salt. Sure. But there are other heroes out there who may say, you know what? Don't kill innocent people, and we got a deal.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many different ways this thing can go. And if in fact all we're seeing is 100% true, and Deathstroke's now in charge of it, that really is going to change what we're going to see. Because we've seen Deathstroke work with heroes before because they've had a common end. And I'll be honest with you, I could see Deathstroke being a piece that could bring together villains. Because he is that respected among the evil society that they're like, hey, this is Deathstroke. You know, I don't know if I want to go against him.
Right. Yeah, what an interesting character. I love that we're seeing a Deathstroke that is dealing with the aftermath of his family and everything that's going on. There's a humanity to Deathstroke that's here. We're seeing Dinah's love of family. It's funny, there's differences between the two, but yet so much is similar, where you can see how these could be characters that could really learn to relate to each other in a very, very strong way.
These two could become friends. Maybe.
Yeah. Wow, I could not be more excited for issue 6. This is a good time to be a DC fan. I mean, there's some really interesting books on the table right now, and this is one that was a nice surprise.
Holy caffeine!
I would like to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. We love having you part of the show. RagingBullets@gmail.com is our email address if you prefer to contact us that way. RagingBullets.com is our show website, and it feeds into a Facebook fan page. It feeds into Twitter. We are proud, though, to be a part of an amazing Facebook group community, and I want to thank everyone who posts there, because I pop in there every morning just to see, has anybody posted a new article, something new interested that they're talking about? They post about things that are both in and out of DC Comics, pop culture in general, just interesting topics that are there. Please feel free to use that as a source for promoting your own blogs, your own podcasts, things like that as well. I'm a big believer in community. One of the reasons why we've been lucky over the years to get such a great audience base has been the people that have shouted us out. So feel free to call in, shout out your podcasts and blogs. Feel free to do it in our Facebook group. I'm all for sharing and connecting that way. I think it's an important part of the community aspect of podcasting. The About Us section of the show website is where you're going to find out how to get to us on gaming platforms and social media if you want to contact us directly that way. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Seguin, what's going on over at DCBService.com?
DCBS is a great location for comics, for apparel, for statues, action figures, and whatnot. So please check out their website. You're going to see some great deals on not just comic book related. It's all types of stuff. So thank you, DCBS.
or at InStockTrades.com. They've got amazing deals of the week all the time. Batman, Robin, and Howard is one of the very cool books that I was glad to pick up. It's $9.99 regularly, 52% off only $4.79. They also have The Crisis on Multiple Earths Crossing Over, Book 1, trade paperback, $39.99 regularly, 55% off, only $17.99. Ground floor of the multiverse, so if you haven't picked this stuff up, definitely take a look at it. Green Arrow, 80 Years of the Emerald Archer, the deluxe edition, $29.99 regularly, 60% off, only $11.99. Vast array of deals you can find over at InStockTrades.com. I want to thank both companies for continuing to support our show. Jim, our next episode, we're going to be back and we're going to be talking about Task Force Z and I Am Batman. We will see you then.
Bye.
All right, you guys. Are you ready to sing your song?
I'd say we are. Yeah, let's sing it now.
Okay, this should be fun. Now get ready for your cue. Okay, Sean?
Okay.
Okay, Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Raging Bullets time is here. We talk about what we hold dear. Comic books and TV shows. Superheroes and their clothes. Justice League and so much more. I just love Green Lantern Corps. We talk about the books we've read with spoilers straight ahead.
Okay, fellas, get ready. That was very good, Sean.
Naturally.
Jim, you're a little flat there, so be careful. Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Justice League and so much more. I still love Green Lantern Corps. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show.
Excellent job, guys.
Let's sing it again. Yeah, let's sing it again.
No, that's enough. Let's not push it.
Push it. What is that? Yeah, what are you talking about?
No, I didn't
What are
mean
you
to buy
trying to
that.
say? I think you're going to
Jim,
I don't know.
how long do you want the song to go?
Look, it's